Greetings, everyone. Happy Monday, December 1st. Can't believe we're in December already. 2025. Anthony Broom here with Chris Ballas and Clayton Safey, as we are every Monday night here at the Wolverine. It's a sad and somber show. One, not just because it is the end of the regular season, but because the regular season ended with a dud on Saturday. Michigan sees its 4-game win streak in the Ohio State rivalry snapped. 27-9 win for the defending national champions, top-ranked team in the country. We will talk about that. We will talk about where things go next. I feel like after every loss this year, which they've all looked the same, we'll talk about that as well. It's always come with the question, what's next and what needs to change? And that's a little more difficult question to answer when they all look the same. So we'll get to that. Also, some big coaching news around the Big Ten, especially with Michigan's in-state rival. We'll address that as well. Basketball had an insanely dominant week in Vegas. We will get to that. And like we do every week, we will take your questions to end the show. But fellas, welcome back.
Thanks for having me, Anthony.
That's it? That's what we're going with?
What do you want me to say?
It's hello, how are you?
Well, you know how I am. This sucks. We're not used to this feeling. It's been since 2019 that we had to deal with a loss to Ohio State. And I'll say this, credit to them. That's the best team in the country. I've been saying that. I picked a 7-point loss. Part of the reason I picked a 7-point loss was because if I picked a 14-point or a 20-point loss, I would have been just getting crapped on even worse than we do on the boards when we pick them to lose and on social media. You guys, how can you do that? Blah, 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 blah. And
you're pandering.
Yeah, a little bit, but you saw it coming, guys. And it was really, they were better at just about every position with the exception of kicker. So, and it was nice to see Dominic Zavada make some field goals. But as Jason Avant said after the 2002 game in Columbus, field goals don't win football games, especially games like this. So they needed to get off to like a 14-0 start when they got the pick and when they had the first possession. Instead, they went into a shell. I have no idea what they were trying to do offensively. I'm not blaming Chip Lindsey, because that was not a Chip Lindsey offense that I saw out there. You can say whatever you want to. Chip Lindsey is not going to throw the ball 5 times in the first half. So there were a lot of cooks in the kitchen on that one. And it flat out sucked like it did in the big 3 games of the year and in several other games this year. Michigan has not gone above 19 points against any team that finished in the top 25 in the last 2 years. They had 9 touchdown passes this year, which is a disgrace. And it was a joke, frankly. So unfortunately, they saved one of their worst games for last. I don't know if they would have won if they'd played their best game, because I think that Ohio State had a lot of counters and Michigan could get no pass rush. That was a concern. Really disappointing with the edges that at the beginning of the year, Sherrone Moore said, I can't imagine a better pair of edges in the country when it came to pass rushing or whatever. And that was before Jayshon Barham even moved there. Those guys were really, really silent, and it was disappointing all around. Really a dud of a game, a hell of a way to end the year.
I went from the shortest, hey, how's it going, to the longest. I'm doing all right.
How are you?
Great to be here. And Anthony, you mentioned Big Ten news. We got Big Ten news that dropped right before the show here, that Penn State is zeroing in on Kalani Sitake, the BYU coach. So that would be a good hire. They're going to get some Samoan dudes in
you think that's a good hire?
Pennsylvania. I think it's a solid hire.
I don't think he's a good fit. I don't think that's I think he's a good coach. Do I think he's the right fit? It's like Jonathan Smith at Oregon State going to Michigan State. Does he have ties over there? Does he? I just don't see that being the great hire that other people are saying. But regardless.
Well,
yeah,
we'll get to all that.
That's big news.
Yeah, we will get to all that. I want to read this $20 super chat from our guy, Ramez Herrick, who says, first, thank you for the outstanding coverage this year. Secondly, I thought we would bring in an extraterrestrial performance on Saturday. Finally, I hope to meet you at an Alumni Association of Detroit event this offseason. Ramez, we would love to be there. Waiting on the invite. We got our buddies up in Flint that we went to the golf outing earlier this summer. I would love to shake some hands and meet some folks down in the city of Detroit. So would love to do that. But thank you for your support as well. Ramez is always on here. Firing the money cannons, so to speak. We can't go get a wide receiver or any player at a position of need with this money. That's Michigan's job to do that, but put some dog in the food, some food in the dog's bowl, as I like to say. So thank you, Ramez. Before we get into our Michigan-Ohio State discussion, unfortunately, we do want to remind everyone that it's Cyber Monday. You did your Black Friday shopping. You probably did some retail therapy this weekend after your football team lost, or if you're a Detroit sports fan, all of your teams except the Pistons are on a bit of a downward spiral at the moment. But homefieldapparel.com has you covered. A Cyber Monday deal right now. You can get up to 30% off over at their site for the next couple hours here. You better hurry up and get on it. Christmas shopping is underway, holiday shopping underway. You got to get these orders in so they can get this shipped out to you so you can wrap it, put it under the tree, because we are in the month of December already. So thanks to Homefield Apparel. They have a wonderful Michigan collection. You're going to be out at Chrysler Center out this year. Get some Michigan basketball gear, re-outfit yourself, layer up. It's frigidly cold out there now, and Homefield's got all that stuff for you. So head on over to homefieldapparel.com. And as always, we thank them for their partnership with us. Also, for the Wolverine, a little housekeeping. Time is running out on our Cyber Monday deal. You get 50% off an annual subscription over at thewolverine.com, which is going to get you access to, obviously, the stuff we do, the national content, the recruiting content from the guys over at Rivals. So head on over to thewolverine.com now. Take advantage of that offer. And you got a little less than 6 hours now to get in on what the best deal that we will probably run all year. So take advantage of that today. All right. Well, as we do every Monday, we turn things over to Clayton Safey for the first word tonight and maybe the last word, or starting the last word in the Ohio State game. We sort of touched on it in the beginning. Just a complete dud of a performance. And for someone like me who feels extra like an idiot for picking them to win the game, could not have started any better. You pop a 36-yard run, which we'll talk about the offense in a sec. That might have been the worst thing that could have happened to them, is having success running on the first play of the game. But you jump out to an early 3-0 lead. You get an interception on the second snap of the game, and you're kind of sitting here feeling like, oh, holy crap, is it really going to happen again? And then, of course, it spirals out of control. Ohio State really wins those middle two quarters and dominates the game, quite frankly. There's no excuses. There's no crying. There's no bitching. There's no moaning. They beat Michigan's ass and sealed it with a 20-play drive that spanned a couple quarters at the end of that game.
Yeah. It's a one-game season, so it could have devolved into something different than, I guess, what was expected, right? If you score touchdowns on those first two drives instead of just settling for the field goals. And really the long play on the first play kind of got them 3 points at the very least. So at least it did something. But yeah, I mean, the offense with the uninspiring performance. I mean, you didn't score a touchdown in a game for the first time since 2014. You had 163 yards. It's the fewest amount of yards you've had in a game since the Iowa game in 2013. I mean, there have been a lot of things this year that it's like, oh, it's the first since the Brady Hoke years. You never want that. Like Jim Harbaugh, there were times when it was, oh, this is the first since the 1970s, and this is the first since 1997. And it's like, oh, that's good. And then when things don't go as well, obviously you hearken back to some of the more lean years, which is unfortunate. But that's the type of offensive performance it was. You have to credit Ohio State's defense because it is probably the best defense in the country. But you just felt like Michigan should have been able to get more. It's unfortunate you didn't have Justice Haynes or Jordan Marshall really at his full capability. Obviously tried to go and came back in late, but was nowhere near effective. You end up with -8 rushing yards in the second half. But, the problem with this game was not that it was, a surprising dud, as you put it. It was that this is kind of how Michigan played all year in games like this. And that's why I picked Ohio State to win 28-14. And really, I overestimated what Michigan's offensive firepower was going to be in this game because obviously they end up with no touchdowns, just the 3 field goals, and credit Zavada for coming out and doing his job. But other than that, I mean, it was hard to find positives in the game. Again, that's a huge credit to Ohio State. But now you look at it and you've scored 13, and 9 points with 3 total touchdowns in your 3 losses this year. You're averaging 14.5 points per game in losses under Sherrone Moore. So it's just not good enough on that side of the ball. And then the defense just played okay and got worn down. And I thought it was disappointing with the pass rush, the defensive line, which was way overhyped coming into the year. And then just the body language, it felt like on that long 80-yard, 12-minute drive, nearly 12-minute drive. And, but at the same time, the offense didn't help them out enough. So it was just kind of disappointing that was exactly what you kind of expected the game could turn into, and it did. You had a special performance a year ago that won you the game. You had obviously the 3 before that. It was time that Ohio State was going to win one, but it didn't have to look like that. Thought you could have had a much better game plan on offense.
Yeah, before you get to me, let's go to the super chats here. AB, I think we got another one or two. Mizzlemar 0726, dude, I want to give you a shout out too. Thanks. What up, Doe? What up, dude? And then Loveskeen's comment, how much better was Ohio without Tate and Smith? I mean, they were going to win that game probably without them, but those guys are elite. So is this a one-possession game with Jordan Haynes, Justice Haynes, Jordan Marshall, Rod Moore, Ernest Hausman, Max Bredesen? I think you got a better opportunity, right? But the one thing is that Bryson Cudsdale, I think, is a good runner, but in the second half, as Doug Skeen noted, Shane, they've started bringing their safeties up and daring Michigan to throw, and Michigan wanted no part of that, and that didn't make any sense to me either. It seems like the last 2 weeks, Bryce Underwood got a little bit more confident. They put a little bit more on his plate. And what Sherrone Moore said after the game was, well, when we started running the ball, that wasn't really the game plan. We wanted to be more balanced, but it played out that we were running the ball so well. Well, that lasted for about a quarter, and then you got to do some things. You got to spread them out and try to open it up a little bit. They don't have great receivers outside of Andrew Marsh. Did they even target him, guys? Maybe one target?
Not officially.
Right, which is a joke. And
I saw one target, and obviously he drew the PI, but
right, that's a good point. And then on top of that, you had guys going into the locker room after the game saying, from people who were there saying, man, I'm glad we didn't run any of the plays that we practiced all week. So there was some really frustration there that, okay, did we really put our best foot forward here? You need a great game plan in a game like this when you are overmatched. And I'll go back to 2017, right, when they had really no business being in that game with Ohio State, and we're right there in it at the end. So before the terrible interception, one of the worst interceptions I've ever seen, kind of sealed their fate. So, but they were dropping passes. There were stupid penalties after plays. You got guys headbutting officials and staying in the game. And more than anything, though, guys, they got dominated. The Joe Moore bullshit. Can we just put that shit to rest? Okay, Ohio State.
Well, we did. All we ever said was that they were named a semifinalist.
Yeah, and I'm not talking about you guys, obviously.
I know.
I'm talking about the people that are like, oh, you guys don't know offensive line play. Ohio State had the much better offensive line. The fact that they aren't in the top 8 for the Joe Moore Award, I think they gave up 6 sacks all year, guys, compared to 18 for Michigan. So it's nice to run for 200 and something yards on dog shit teams, but when you need to step up is against Oklahoma. When you need to step up is against Ohio State and against USC, and they pretty much disappeared in all of those games. This was a 9-3 season, which is what I predicted, and I predicted on Andy Staples' show before the year and got a bunch of shit for that Michigan would probably lose to Ohio State this year, that these things have a way of it was just seemed like it was time that they had the better, more experienced team. And then with all the injuries, that really kind of made it a foregone conclusion. So, but not all 9-3s are created equal. As I wrote, it felt like an Illinois 9-3 from last year. And when they were ranked in the top 12 this year, I said that Illinois team, looking at their schedule, they're going to have 4 or 5 losses. They had 4, could have been even 5. So they barely got by USC at home. But regardless, next year is the big year for Sherrone Moore. They need to get better. And there are a lot of areas. I think they will get better in some areas on the offensive line. I think you will see some improvement there. There needs to be. They got to go out of the portal, though, guys. They got to get a lot of position players, and they've got it not just position players. They got to get a lot of linemen, both sides of the ball, mainly defensive linemen, and develop their offensive line if they're going to be able to compete with teams like Ohio State.
It's funny, the comment on. And that's in your column today over at thewolverine.com. People want to check it out. The comment from a player heading into the locker room saying, we practice all these plays that we didn't run. I was talking to a former player from the 1990s before this season who obviously went through the Cooper days there for Ohio State, and he's got friends on the other side, and they reminisce about those games and say it was the same thing. Like, we would just abandon our game plan every single year, and like when we got to the game, he just tightened up in whatever it was. And who knows if that was the case with Sherrone Moore, but I would imagine they go back and have a lot of regrets when they're watching the film of what we could have done differently. I mean, the 2nd and 10, I mean, every time it was 2nd and long, you just hand it back off. And it just felt like, I wish Sherrone Moore was here in 2017 when Michigan had a magnificent game plan against Ohio State. They just didn't have the guys to run it. And that was the game at the end. And Josh Metellus catches that interception in the end zone in the second quarter. And it could have been different. Ohio State has the late touchdown there. But, you had the ball with the chance to take the lead with John O'Korn and, a team that had no wide receivers essentially and all this stuff. So, the point
isn't that the difference though? Like, good coaching, you find ways to scheme up gain, advantages and wrinkles. And this was, to me, and sorry, not to interrupt you, but
no, not at all. I mean, that's kind of where I'm going. Yeah.
Sticking with the run because it worked early on and abandoning everything that you came into this week doing. It's not just stupid, it's hubris, because you think because you've been able to do it the last 4 years, it was going to work again. So again, I don't know if there's validity to Sherrone Moore butting in on these game plans, but you have a hard time providing evidence otherwise, right? Like, it's especially when you lose a Justice Haynes early in the year, you lose Jordan Marshall in this game. You have no, like, I'm sorry, like, just because Bryson Kuzdal had a good game against Maryland, you have to pivot from that. And the problem with a season, to me, and we have a super chat here from GoBlue 982, says, in person, this was sad. We are where I projected in record, but not development. I want to hope in next year, but I'm skeptical as I feel like there's been regression in the trenches. Nevertheless, go blue and the Buckeyes suck.
All fair.
This 9-3 is empty calories to me, because you come out of that bye week and you got the RPO game going against Northwestern. And I know that it spiraled out of control late. I get that. But offensively, okay, you're starting to build towards something to protect the football. You come out against Maryland and it's kind of 2 weeks in a row. It's proof of concept that you're on this upward trajectory, and then you just completely abandon it. And it against Ohio State, your biggest game of the year. And, I get that Bryce Underwood's a true freshman, but he was the closest thing they had to maybe I can't even say a star player, but a guy that could create some conflict with the Ohio State defense. And he may as well have been John O'Korn with the game plan that they ran with him, or Davis Warren, who Davis Warren threw for more yards in this game than Bryce did this year, by the way. So that tells you a lot of what you need to know as well. It's just when you have a bad game in a vacuum, like, that is what it is, right? The frustrating thing is that this is now 7 double-digit losses of Sherrone Moore's 8 losses, and just no even attempt to pivot, to fight fire with fire. You could say they were bracketing Michigan's receivers all day long, whatever. Okay, look to the tight ends. Look to something else.
They had no respect. They had no respect for Michigan's offense. I mean, they declined a holding on 3rd and 5. Yeah.
They gave Michigan 10 free yards and said, you can't pick up 5 on 3rd down. And they didn't. And that was the game in a nutshell.
And Bryce didn't throw it. Like, it's on him too. He didn't throw it downfield when it was there. And he checked it down. There were a couple of Will Howard type throws as well, like the check down just to no one. Like that wasn't good enough either. But yeah, I'd be hard pressed to put it more on him, I guess, than the staff. But he obviously had a hand in that too, because Marsh was wide open on one. It's tough when the protection's not always there. It's tough when even it is there, but it's not there half the time, and then you're not trusting it when it's there. It's all things he's got to learn, and I think it could click. It could just click into gear next year magically with experience and everything else. But for this year, it just was not quite there, and it just felt like there was more you could have had on offense this year with what you had.
And it's not going to be magically. It's going to take better coaching. Let's be honest here. These guys, they should have been better than they were at a lot of different positions, in my opinion. And then you got of course, the 11-yard punt. You get the ball back, you get a stop, you get to midfield with the one big play, the one downfield passing play, I think it was, if I'm not mistaken. And then you go back into your shell. And if you can pin them deep, you're still in the game, right? Instead, you get an 11-yard punt, which is an absolute disgrace. And unfortunately, the punting game was not good this year. They need to go to the portal and find somebody immediately. And they've got a lot of work to do, guys. There are no more excuses. I'm sorry. You can. You've got the donors. You've got people are all over the place are buying their rosters, and that's just what college football is today. There's no reason that you should go into the season with a punter like that. And I remember asking about it in the preseason, and when they said it was Hudson Hollenbeck, and people were asking, "Oh, he did good against Alabama." I said, "Well, a couple punts were really bad, a couple were really good. You need a good consistent punter." They needed to have the special teams advantage in every position this game to have a chance. We knew that it wasn't going to be that way going in. Last year, Tommy Doman had a couple really good kicks, and special teams were a critical part of that game. You had Ohio State starting a drive at the 6 because they dropped the kickoff, I think it was. They had Tommy Doman kick a line drive over a punt returner's head. He was playing way too short, so he kicks it over his head on a line, and they start another drive at the 6-yard line. Those were things that were going to have to happen. You can't have an 11-yard punt in this game. That was ridiculous. I do think we'll see some changes on special teams in the offseason. Frankly, probably sooner than later. And there are a lot of things that have to happen to make this a better football team. That certainly is one of them.
GoBlue 9828 says, did bad coaching this season waste talent? Will recruits see that and bail? I don't think recruits are going to bail, but this, like I said before, like this 9-3 feels different than, even if you want to take the Oklahoma game out of it, which you can't, it's part of the season. It's week 2. You were young quarterback on the road for the first time. The USC and the Ohio State games were jarring because those are your peers in the conference. Those are measuring stick games, and it needed to be more competitive than that, even if they weren't wins.
You looked like any other team. You could swap the uniforms, right? And a lot of those games, you looked like, for example, against Purdue, it could have been Minnesota playing Purdue. You win at home 21-16. At Michigan State, it was a fourth quarter game, guys. If Michigan State picks up a yard or two or kicks a field goal when they should have, that's a fourth quarter game, and then you're getting all uptight in a game that you should have won by 4 touchdowns, right? The teams that you looked good against were Central Michigan and Maryland, essentially, right? Maybe Nebraska. I guess you could throw Nebraska in there. That was, you had your moments there. We can't take that away from them, even though Nebraska sucked too. But it looked like a middle of the pack Big Ten team against a lot of these other programs. And that's not Michigan. That's not Michigan football. You want them to look frankly, you want them to look like Ohio State and Indiana, the two teams that are in the final this year, and where every guy is in position on every play. You're not getting the ball thrown over your head to a wide open receiver because a guy bites on a double move or a safety misplays a route and you have a receiver running wide open. Those things should not happen. And they happened regularly. There were stupid after the play penalties. Let's be honest, that Jayshon Barham penalty should have been a lot more costly than it was. If not for the unbelievable goal line stand and the penalty, it probably would have been. And then you're talking about what the hell are we doing here? Far too common an occurrence. So lots of things that need to be shored up, attention to detail. It's going to be an interesting offseason. And when it comes to the bowl game, when they're playing Texas, and I don't, you want to win the game, right? I would imagine that a lot of Michigan seniors are going to opt out, and I'm okay with that. I want to see, they need to find out who can play. Do we have edges that can get to the quarterback against a good team like Texas? Do we have our backup linebackers good enough? We already know a lot of these guys aren't good enough against Ohio State. If you match up the rosters, Ohio State was better at just about every position. So, but what do we have to work with and what do we need is what I think how they need to approach the bowl game. Obviously, you still want to win and you're going to have Bryce Underwood out there, but don't go into a shell. I don't want to see this crap again where he's throwing for 52 yards. Do what you did against Northwestern. Let them learn. Run your RPOs. Put the ball in your quarterback's hands. There's a reason that you paid him all the money that you did. $15 million or whatever is what his dad said to the Wall Street Journal. And let's see some improvement.
And to be fair, a lot of those defensive guys are rotating in anyway. So we know that there are big needs at edge rusher, defensive tackle, some other positions. I would say safety is at near the top of my list as well. So, yeah, I mean, it'll be good experience for those guys in 15 extra practices, but at the same time, they're and the portal opens after the bowl game, so we'll know, they'll already, they have that little bit of buffer, but they kind of have to know what their needs are now, and I think that they probably did weeks ago. But yeah, I don't know that Michigan wasted talent. I mean, I don't know that there are all these studs out there that could. I mean, Derek Moore had 9.5 sacks this year. Like there are guys that produced out there. I just think on defense, you didn't have a top 100 NFL draft pick like you did. Had 4 the year before when that defense became elite at the end of the year, and one of them was hurt at the time. And then, on offense, it was a lot of really talented players that were either young or hurt by the end of the year. So that hurt. You're going to have to get some of these guys developed and turn into those stud type of players. And then, if you have holes on the roster, you got to fill them with the transfer portal. But yeah, the empty calorie thing does seem to ring true. Michigan, the conference record of the Big Ten teams that Michigan beat, 17-46. That's a 26.9 win percentage. And the only team that finished in the top half of the standings that Michigan beat, Washington, at 5-4. And, that was obviously a close game at home. You credit Michigan for winning the games because a lot of teams out there would love to win 9 games, but at the same time, the standard here is much higher than that. So yeah, I mean, it was just another year of not good enough, another year of like Michigan's one of the programs when they expanded to 12 teams in the college football playoff. And I know the math doesn't work like this because there are about 20 programs that would say this, but Michigan's in the realistic group where, you should be in there just about every year, 3 out of 4, 4 out of 5, whatever you want to say, even if it's, I don't know, half the time at the very, very least, but that even seems low. And it's 2 years now where you didn't get there and you felt like you had more, especially this season. So that's disappointing. So yeah, but I don't know that there's all this talent out there that they wasted. Like they got a lot out of a lot of guys this year.
I don't think it's wasted talent. I think what it is, we've used this term a lot, like whack-a-mole, where one game your offense would look great, and then there'd be some areas that didn't work out. Protection would be an issue, or the defense would play extremely well, and the offense couldn't score more than 13 points in a game. So it's just the sum. I think the quality of the parts are probably about what the record says they were, but it just doesn't seem like everything was utilized to its best of its abilities. So a couple super chats here. A lot of folks wanting to chime in on football still. We will take this one from Classic Decades Music. He says, why has Bryce Underwood's development been such a struggle? Why not more designed runs? Why is your linebacker absent from the game? I mean, I'll start with the last one. Who the hell knows with Ernest Hausman at this point? I hope whatever happens, he gets what he's looking for. But I think Bryce Underwood's development is really more the offense as a whole. And this goes beyond, I just feel like Michigan institutionally under several coaching staffs has sort of left meat on the bone with the offense, and they make it a little more difficult than it needs to be. There are probably going to be teams in this college football playoff with less talent in the aggregate on offense, and yet their coaching staff schemes guys open and find ways to put the ball in the end zone and is able to throw the ball more than 10, 15 yards down the field. I feel like that's a Michigan problem in general, but it's extremely magnified with a guy that we thought would be much better as a freshman than he was.
And I heard that he was banged up, Ernest, a little bit too, but I don't think that's the reason that he didn't play in this game. And I think most people would agree based on what we've heard. Bryce Underwood looked so good in that first game that against New Mexico. By the way, 9-3 MWC co-champs. They just didn't make it to their championship game because of some obscure tiebreaker. So that was a pretty decent football team. It was so good that Urban Meyer broke him down on Fox and the Big Ten Network and said, this guy's going to be a problem. And then by the end of the year, he looked like a completely different guy. No confidence. Maybe it's that they didn't show the confidence in him and that stunted his growth a little bit. But in some big games, he looked flustered, guys. Even at Michigan State, he looked a little bit flustered. And I don't know how much of that was he didn't rely or didn't depend and trust his offensive line. but he wasn't good in some of those games. And I don't know why there weren't more designed runs for him. I know that Sherrone Moore said when I asked him at media day, are you going to let him turn him loose with your legs? He goes, well, you better have two if you do that. But what do you have to lose in that last game of the year, right? This is everything. And we saw a couple designed runs, but I'm saying, okay, knowing that your backs are out and he is probably your next best player with his feet, with his arm, whatever, let's see what he can do. Let's see if he can have a Devin Gardner type game 2013 or whatever it was, right? But didn't do that. And I thought the game plan was terrible. So it became pretty clear, though, too, that the Michigan receivers didn't, they were blanketed a lot of the day. And there were times they got open. Underwood didn't see him. The whole thing is that Underwood should be better. He is a true freshman, but we expect by the end of the year, the cliche, you're not a freshman anymore. I expected he would be a lot better by this game, to the point that they would have an opportunity if he played really well. And instead he threw for 63 yards, which is a joke.
They keep flip-flopping on he's not a freshman anymore, but then
Right.
After the game,
Right.
Sherrone Moore was rattling off the amount of freshmen that Michigan had playing, and it actually looked like he had tears in his eyes, that he had been, I don't know that I'd ever seen that from a coach at a post-game press conference, but I was almost laughing inside at he's been the one saying he's not a freshman anymore. And then after the game, he was rattling off all the freshmen that played. But either way, yeah, I don't know exactly what it's supposed to look like because it's so rare to have a freshman quarterback. I think we all expected there to be some ups and downs. And to be fair, towards the end of the year, he did a lot of really good things too, Northwestern, Maryland. But yeah, it's at the end of the day, that passing game could have been better, I would imagine, in the bigger games. The Ernest Hausman thing, also another thing I'd never seen before. I mean, you start to see a regular social media activity and then a captain on the team just disappears. So obviously hurt that he wasn't out there with his guys in the biggest games, or in the biggest game, I guess, in the last two of the regular season. So hopefully he's back for the bowl game. But that's, I don't even know how to explain that. It's pretty much unheard of. I mean, you look at it, he's one of your best players and one of your top leaders that they've talked about for the last year, since last January, as being the guy. I mean, he's your green dot player on defense, and he just disappeared. Fox didn't mention it during the game. I don't know how that's not a bigger story, but yeah, that was obviously huge. He would have been huge to have out there. And someone in the comments too mentioned the defense and too much trash talk by our defense. Just play the effing game. I agree. The whole second half, it looked like half those guys just wanted to fight.
Stupid.
And they laid down on that long drive, and I get that's tough, but I was talking about it after the game, it was like the guys were just sauntering on and off the field when they're subbing in and out and things like that. It just felt off. So yeah,
you kept saying to me during the game, someone's gonna fight.
Yeah, I thought it was gonna get ugly after the game,
and that's embarrassing, guys. Yeah. This is Michigan. That's embarrassing.
I mean, can we talk about the midfield thing while we're on the subject? I think that's maybe forget the play on the field. I think after what happened last year, standing on the logo and protecting it is some of the softest things I've ever seen. And that's days after Sherrone said, there's not going to be anything, no extracurriculars, none of that. They were ready for something to happen. And how pathetic is it that Ohio State kind of just, Ryan Day called it off and said, we're not going to do anything. You just get these guys out of here.
That was the best defense of the day, if we're being honest, right?
Goal line stand was pretty good.
Goal line stand was good. That's a close second. So, and, it was kind of funny listening to Ryan Day say, I've been sitting, wondering how I would approach this when I won this game and what I would say. And instead we're going to show humility. And I'm like, well, he's been thinking about that for a long ass time because it's been a long time. And let's not pretend that you didn't have a part in this whole sign gate thing. And now you're taking the high road and you're this guy and you're the beacon of integrity. What a crock of shit. So it is what it is. But there are no excuses here. You're not going to see us like the Ohio media sitting there and say, oh, the snow and they didn't have their players and this and that. They got their ass kicked. And that's the way it is. Just like Ohio State got its ass kicked the previous 4 years. They can make all their excuses. What we're going to say is that, hey, they got beat.
You go up the tunnel and get your chicken sandwich.
Go up the tunnel and get your chicken sandwich, and you better come back better next year because you were not even close to good enough this year, and that's not acceptable.
I just realized something. I think Ohio State finally hung 100. It took them 5 years after Ryan Day's initial comment. So they finally got there. Congrats to Ryan. But yeah, like he's acting all humble in the press conference as if he's not the guy who said he's going to hang 100 and the Big Ten better have a mercy rule and whatever.
Yep.
So, what he doesn't want to fan the flames because he knows this could come crumbling down, I guess, next year if Michigan goes down there and wins. But I guess whatever. It was probably the smart move by him to do that. But still, like the past still exists. What has happened there? But yeah, the midfield thing and Bryson Cusdahl after the game saying that we were standing there, we weren't going to let them plant a flag or whatever. It's like, you guys are the ones that did it. I would have been totally fine. I thought Ohio State should have done it, but then they would have been the hypocrites because they didn't like it on their home field. It doesn't really matter, but at the end of the day, that was really, really odd.
They were going to do it. They had the flag and they were ready to go over there with it. And Ryan Day can say whatever he wants to, but if you go back and watch it, they were bringing that flag over there, and they had full intention of doing that. So
it was a much smaller flag, by the way.
And I don't give a. There's another one. Go back and watch. There was another one too on a poll, and I frankly don't give a shit. Like you said, if Michigan's going to do it, then you know what? What's good for them is good for Ohio.
Hey, game on. Like for as much pearl clutching as there was over that last year.
Yep.
What led every single hype video for this game leading up to it?
Exactly. And
so
you know
they
what?
Should celebrate. Yeah, they should celebrate however they want. Like Michigan is the home team, but they both come together for intercollegiate college football game. They both are on that field that day. You celebrate how you want. The losers go home. That's how it works.
Jim Tressel used to pull up a ladder, like I said, and direct the band in the alma mater and the fight song or whatever right there in front of the Block M. So give me a bleeping break.
Matthew Mail wants everyone to know he spent $10. Assume an Ohio State fan to say Underwood to Ohio or LSU once the portal opens. Here comes the lane train. So now Ohio State fans have 3 teams they root for. They root for themselves. They root for Michigan State, and now they're rooting for LSU, I guess. So thanks for the $10,
you loser. A nice avatar there with the middle finger. That pretty much sums up the majority of your fan base in one single picture.
Yeah,
winning with integrity.
That's exactly what they
humility.
Yeah, the middle finger. It's like the guy walking out a few years ago with the double bird. That's the things that they love down there, and obviously integrity
that's
is
the reason. Whatever, Matthew, that everybody thinks your fan base is the biggest joke in the country and the biggest.
I'd love to move on and not talk about Ohio State. A couple of super chats from Shane Johnson. Says more seats about to get hotter if Texas goes 9 or if it's Texas 9-4. I don't think the bowl game has any any effect on that at all.
What if you get destroyed?
If you get blown out 50-0, right, Clay? Yeah.
Well,
maybe. I mean, winning helped him last year. I mean,
I agree.
That's fair.
I think this is still a big game. Mm-hmm. I mean, you guys know where I stand on bowl games anyway, but regardless of just me personally, it's still a big game. And I mean, look, there's a lot of pressure on him going into next year. It looks like he survived Black Monday today and Black Sunday, obviously yesterday, because it's now Monday at 6:40. But there's a lot of pressure on Sherrone Moore. You took over a team that won the national championship, and they haven't made the 12-team college football playoff the last 2 years. Obviously, me saying that there's so much more context that goes into it, and I understand all of it, especially last season. But at the same time, the donors and whatever else, this is crazy. Look at all the buyouts being paid, and his is obviously pretty small. But look at the coaching carousel this year. Like, you got to win at a program like Michigan. So,
and there's no wiggle room next year. Like, there's not, and it's a much tougher schedule. If they don't make the playoff, like, we're going to be having the conversation, and
yes,
quite frankly, we should be.
Yep.
So I'm totally with you.
It will probably be double-digit dogs or close to it at Oregon, at Ohio State, unless they show me something in the in the first 3-4 games here where they've really come together. And
you're gonna know early with Oklahoma in week 2 because
Oklahoma at home and then Oregon and Ohio State. I mean, there is no wiggle room, guys, with those 2 big road games at Oregon and Ohio State, where you're going to be significant underdogs. You lose one more game, you're out of the playoff most likely. So you got Iowa.
That's without even bringing up
Indiana.
You play Penn State next year. You play Indiana. I guess this is a good place to move into the coaching carousel. There are some openings in the Big Ten. Bob Chesney of James Madison going to UCLA. Michigan won't go out there until I think 2027. So that doesn't affect next year's. We opened the show with Kalani Sitake. BYU is maybe Penn State's preferred guy right now. The one that is tangible, the one that will have effect, not just next year, but every year in this state now, Michigan State has decided to hire Pat Fitzgerald. It moved on from Jonathan Smith, and Fitzgerald's a guy that I have a ton of respect for. The guy I think had a Northwestern program over 17 years that punched above its weight class, relatively speaking, given what the expectations are there. I mean, they're always tough. They were physical. For a school like Michigan State, it's funny. Like, I think, I don't know what the ceiling of a hire like this is. I probably think it's the 7 or 8 wins that they were at Northwestern. But if nothing else, when Michigan plays Michigan State next year, they're going to be going up against a program now that has a guy that I think a lot of Michigan fans have respected over the years. He got a phone call from Michigan in 2011 when that job was open. I think a lot has changed in college football, but I think it's a decent hire for them. It's not quite the high ceiling hire that maybe they thought they were going to get by firing Jonathan Smith. But you guys' thoughts on Pat Fitzgerald? I think it's a competent hire for them.
I think he is a high floor, low ceiling guy. And we haven't seen him, in 4 years now? I always liked him. I always respected him at Northwestern, what he did there. I think he's a good football coach. I think he's a good culture guy. So I think you're going to see a lot less of the shenanigans, which is great, in my opinion, for this rivalry. I think he's a better fit than Jonathan Smith was. When he came over, I said he's a good coach. I think he's a good guy, which I don't think makes him a good fit. Fitzgerald, I don't think has that hatred in his heart that they really want. But I think that he is a good football coach. And I think that that the culture is going to be pretty solid there. So the two things that come to mind, if he doesn't have any money, it won't matter. It sounds like they're going to get an infusion of NIL money hiring him. And that's probably one of the things he said. Are you going to leave me out hanging out to dry, or are you going to give me some help? So, but you still have to compete with the big boys for recruits, even if you're paying. And he's going to have a lot of work to do there. I think he's got some ties in the Midwest, obviously, and a lot of people who respect him. I know there are a lot of coaches out there who respect him. So, yeah, they could have done worse, I guess. Is he going to win championships there, Big Ten championships there? I don't think so. I think there are a lot of people who probably don't think so either in the new and improved Big Ten. But I do think that he raises their floor significantly at the very least.
Yeah, Big Ten championships. I mean, if he could get into the playoff once every 7 years or something like that, would it be okay for them? Maybe, but they had a couple of good years under D'Antonio when Michigan was down, but obviously it's a tough job. If I were a Michigan fan, I would have rather had them, keep Jonathan Smith. So good job, Michigan State, not doing that, right? I always look at this. People would be like, "Oh, I hated Harbaugh and I hated it." It's like, good, you should. Like, that means Michigan was doing something right, and he was doing something right. And same thing, if you liked that Jonathan Smith, went 1-8 in the Big Ten this year, then good job, Michigan State, I guess, firing him. And Pat Fitzgerald, I think they could have made a lot worse hires too. So I'm with you. I think it's a solid hire for them. It's interesting because he was at one place for so long, and he kind of is Northwestern football in a lot of ways. Legendary linebacker, and he played for them when they were in the Rose Bowl, I think, and all this. Like, what is it going to be like elsewhere? Was it the fit that was helping you? Was it the Big Ten West that was helping you out? And there's really no pressure at Northwestern. He was able to have some terrible years at the end and stay, but so yeah, we'll see. That one's interesting. Sataki at Penn State is interesting. All the SEC openings are interesting. Brian Hartline looks like he's going to interview for the Kentucky job. Same with Will Stein, the offensive coordinator at Oregon. So that's something to watch too, even though it's SEC. Could get some of the top coordinators in the Big Ten to leave, or at least one of them. So yeah, this coaching carousel has been kind of really entertaining to follow and fun to watch, but solid hire there. And Penn State, now all eyes are on them.
All eyes are on them. I think that's the last one left in the conference. Unless there's some kind of change that happens after the fact, but
you just never know.
Well, and UCLA's was earlier today. That's official, right?
Yep. I think reported, not official, okay. But it's going to be Bob Chesney, who a lot of people thought was a dark horse at Penn State too. So
looks like my former colleague Brandon Brown's younger, fitter brother is what I said. So, so
okay, I'll look at the picture.
Yeah, he looks a little bit like Brandon Brown. Kind of funny, but he's a great coach. I think that's a great hire for them.
Yeah, just keep hiring JMU coaches. Why not?
Right.
Yeah, the one thing, and I'm not dogging Michigan State. I think it's a very competent hire that they made. it's kind of funny to me that they've been lamenting the last 2 years, like not getting in on Kurt Signetti, and then instead not really even considering Bob Chesney, it seems like, and then just hiring a guy where I think you have a pretty fixed ceiling on what you'll be under him.
You don't
we'll
know
see.
though. I mean, Northwestern has a ceiling, and people are like, "Oh, he didn't embrace the portal." It's like they couldn't get transfers until like this past offseason. So, he was at a place that had like a built-in ceiling. Was it him? Was it them?
There's a lot of his players. Isn't Marsh already in the portal? So,
and he doesn't have players to bring. That's a good point.
Exactly what I was just going to say. You know, if it's JMU, you know, you bring half that team like Signetti did, you know, and these guys have all played together, and maybe you get a running start. He's starting from scratch here. There's not a whole lot of talent on that football team. And so he's going to have one hell of a rebuild there. They're going to have to be a little bit patient with him. So, but I like him. I really do. I've ridden elevators with him at Big Ten Media Day. Michigan State could have done a lot worse.
It seems like they think that the NIL canon, it's just going to be physical Pat Fitzgerald football, and they're going to fire the money cannons at people. And maybe that does work, but they have a lot of work to do. I don't know that there's the upshot of it that maybe some other candidate, but maybe with the spot that they've been in with Mel Tucker and now Jonathan Smith, maybe they need a high floor guy for a little bit, and then you pass it off to. I don't know. I don't know what to think of that yet. We'll see what happens with the offseason, how the staff he brings in, the players they bring in, but worth talking about, given that it's Michigan's in-state rival.
Do you think Fitz put on his resume that he rode an elevator with you, Chris? I mean, that could have helped him get the job.
Well, he started the conversation. I was just have my eyes on the wall,
I think any association with Chris Ballas probably disqualifies you from any Michigan State job.
Yeah, they didn't know that beforehand. So
it's coming out now. Yeah, here we go.
Exactly. Oh shit, we're gonna have. You know what? We're gonna see something on.
No more press conference tomorrow or whatever.
There's no video evidence of that, so it'll be all right. But you know what? When I said that, when I rode an elevator with him, I meant I got to chat with him a little bit, obviously, and get to talk to him. And I told him I had respect for his Northwestern program. You know, when he started talking to me and asking me where I was from and all that. Unlike Bobby Williams, who in 2001, when I was asking him a question at the table, shit, where are you from? And when I told him Ann Arbor, it was, we had to get a couple bodyguards to get me out of there. So he's a class guy. And so hopefully, I can't say hopefully he has success there, but, for my Michigan State friends, and yes, I do have some, I think that there are better days ahead.
Hey, Pat, I have a lot of respect for your little program over there. Yeah. Is that how you said it?
I said, you know what? You got to change wear more black, man. The purple's an embarrassment, and whatever you do, don't go to Michigan State, I said, but obviously he didn't listen. So, and
he did not listen. Yeah. I just know, if nothing else, that some of those annoying bar fight games that Michigan's played with Northwestern over the years, that's coming to this rivalry. And
wait,
I'd kind of dread that just from a stylistic perspective, but want to move into basketball for a few minutes, and we'll take a couple questions to end the show. Way to bury the lead for 48 minutes. This team might be really good. A plus 110 scoring margin in the 3-day Players Era event. Michigan wins the Players Era championship with 40-point win over San Diego State, 30-point win over Auburn, the program that knocked them out of the tournament last year. And then the team that came into to Wednesday night's game is the number 1 team on KenPom, Gonzaga. You obliterated them in a way that Mark Few, I've never seen that man that despondent in his entire coaching career. That was earmuffs, kids, and it doesn't matter, we've swore already, but that was a 3-day shit pumping out there in Las Vegas. I've never seen anything like that.
It was fun. And he was at a loss for words. It's like, what the hell just happened? Was the look on his face. And I would love to know what he said to Dusty May in that line when they were shaking hands, because you could just tell how impressed he was. It's funny, just like a week and a half ago, Dusty May we aren't even close to our ceiling. We have a long way to go. And we wrote that and we agreed with him. And then I actually had a poster from the board somehow get my phone number and start cussing at me about, LOL, you said they had a long way to go or something like that. And I said, well, no, those were Dusty May's words. And how'd you get this number?
It's probably the same guy that was blowing me up about there being a basketball podcast. And now there is one. So
yeah.
Welcome.
Yeah. What's your number again?
Yeah, exactly. Let's put them out there. 555. So
867-5309.
Yeah, exactly. So 8, 6, 7. There. Hey, see, that one went right over Clay's head. You have no idea
It's
what
a song. It didn't go over my head. It's a song.
Okay, well, there it is. Good job, Anthony. Another one of the reasons you're one of the more underrated guys out there covering Michigan, because you're so understanding.
I'm properly rated.
No,
I'm
you
where
are
I need to be.
Very high.
Yep. Yeah, you are rated very highly in our book. But regardless, this was Trey McKinney playing like a veteran. When you shoot like that, guys, you are going to win a lot of basketball games. And when you defend like that, it was funny because two or three of the coaches, I think, said, yeah, it's impossible to score on these guys in the lane, but their activity on the perimeter was what really kind of did us in. We had to work so hard just to get in the lane. And then you have some big guy there, to erase everything. Clay and I, when we were watching one of the games, we said, how in the hell are you supposed to score with a Daimara in there under the guy's not, he can touch the rim almost standing up, and it's almost impossible. So it was fantastic to see these guys start to come together and start to gel. I love the way Roddy Gale is playing guys within himself. He's not forcing a whole lot. When he does force it, it's usually going off his knee out of bounds, but he's doing less of that. So, and they're going to have to get better guard play still. Elliot Cadeau came a long way, but they're going to have teams that get right up in their grill and really test their guards to keep the ball from getting into the bigs. And those are going to be the biggest challenges going forward. As Nick Saban used to say at Alabama, we can't buy into the rat poison, right? And read our own clippings and everything else. But I think they're going to stay grounded. This is a really good team, guys. As we predicted, this is going to be a lot of fun.
And Dusty said that Sunday was their best practice of the year, most spirited practice of the year. So that's a good sign when it comes to lack of complacency. And they have some more practices here. You almost wish, they had a week and a half in between this and then Saturday's Big Ten opener against Rutgers. If you're Michigan, you're probably like, oh, when's the next game? Like, let's keep playing. We got momentum right now, but they've got to be able to deal with this and obviously needed to rest up a little bit. This team right now is proving that what Dusty May has said for over a year is true, that they're going to find these ways to win outside of just shooting. And then when they make their shots, it's going to determine the margin of victory. They've won a couple close ones, not making their 3-point shots, Wake Forest, TCU. And then once they're hitting them, double-digit threes in all 3 games out in Las Vegas, they win by 30 and 40 against really good teams. It's not always going to happen, but yeah, you said it, Chris. I mean, the defense is what stands out the most. And Dusty May said today, and I thought it was a great comment, that Elliot Cadeau had mentioned something in a meeting, that when you play the defense that we do and when you rebound at the level that we're rebounding, it alleviates a lot of pressure off of the offense, making shots or, coming down to one free throw here or whatever. They're creating a margin for themselves. And remember last year, Dusty would say all the time, we just don't have the margin right now to turn it over and all these things. They have the margin right now. Even against good teams the last 3 games, it's not always going to be that way, but it's good that when it's good to know that when you're playing your best, it's amounting in blowout wins over great programs. The one number that stands out to me the most is 27 right now. And that is the difference between Michigan's 2-point field goal shooting percentage, 63.9, which is 6th in the country, and their 2-point defense, 36.9, first in the country. That right there is going to win you a hell of a lot of games. And if you hit your threes, you're going to win by 30 and 40, and Charlie May is going to be in the game at the end.
Charlie May in the game he's becoming this team's Darko Milicic, the human victory cigar. I love it.
Leon Franklin as well. Yeah.
You want to win, put Leon Franklin in. Yeah, Michigan number 3 in the AP poll, which, you come in today, Dusty's wondering, do I have to downplay it for these guys to be the number 1 team? If we're not the number 1 team, do we get to use it as fuel? Well, I guess they get to use it as fuel now, and they'll get the chance to make a statement on Saturday against Rutgers at home. KenPom projects a pretty lopsided win. Rutgers pretty terrible to start this season so far. So we'll break down that game probably a little more in depth on our Thursday show. But yeah, it's been incredible to watch, especially, Michigan's gone to Maui before and won, and they won the Fort Myers thing last year, but 3 games in 3 days and to have your fastball 3 nights in a row it's pretty remarkable. If you thought the 3 days of the Big Ten tournament were fun, that the Vegas trip was insane for them. So like I said, back in action on Saturday.
Real quick,
got a couple. Go ahead.
Just think of there are two things of this, right? The Michigan's hard to prepare for with that size and the depth they have. They're more fresh than you are, whatever. 24 hours to prepare for those games, other than the first one against San Diego State. So Michigan's going to be tough to prepare for in the tournament time. But in the regular season, there's going to be a higher level of scouting. Gonzaga didn't know they were playing Michigan until after midnight Eastern on, that Tuesday night before the Wednesday. So as Dusty said today, like they're going to have to change a lot of things up because, Purdue, Illinois, Michigan State, they're going to scout them better. But for tournament time, that bodes well. Big Ten tournament, NCAA tournament. I like it.
Yeah, and like Dusty said too, they're going to add a little more to their repertoire and make themselves a little tougher to game plan for here. I want to take a couple questions before we get out of here. The first one I'll take from our message board. This is over to football. It's from LC98, who says over under 2.5 on coaches being let go this offseason.
Under. I think you'll see a move at special teams, and I don't like calling for anybody's job, but I mean, that one seems like an obvious one, right? And then maybe one more. Maybe somebody leaves on his own, or there's a mutual parting of the ways, but I'm going to go with 2.
I'm going to go slightly under 2. Yeah, there is always something that you don't expect, or a guy leaves for a different job or gets a coordinator job, whatever it is. And then there's probably, last year was just 1, but that seemed low. So the odds are it's probably going to be higher than that.
I know it's not no man knows the future, but I'm going to go the other way just for conversation's sake and say 3. So back that onto my standings at the end of the
it's
year.
very possible. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, who knows? What's that?
We have a show Thursday this week?
Yes.
Okay, good deal.
We got a lot of games to pick, right?
Yeah,
that's right.
This is from D. Herb, who says, would love to hear your guys' thoughts. The loss of Ben Herbert as strength and conditioning coach has hurt this program's toughness and players' health, i.e. the ability to stay healthy pre and throughout the season. So thoughts on that? Would you fire the money cannons to bring Ben Herbert back?
I would in a heartbeat. I don't think he'd come.
If he wanted to come, of course.
Yeah, I think he's happy where he is, and all those guys are. People got on Jim Harbaugh for taking his guys with him who wanted to go, which is kind of funny, How dare he? And when he did that, unfortunately, that really made the Sherrone Moore's job a lot harder. He had a short time to put together a staff. Some of these guys might be in a little over their heads, and that was a huge loss, Ben Herbert. Now, I don't know how much when you talk about injuries, I remember Mike Barwis when he came here with Rich Rodriguez, the strength coach, and he talked about prehab all the time, and we've had less knee injuries than anybody. I think some of that's just the luck of the draw, guys, right? A lot of these injuries are guys, getting a cleat stuck in the turf or something like that. So, but I do think it matters a ton. He was a father figure. With all due respect to Justin Truss, it's different. And so, but it absolutely, if you could get him back, I would get him here in a heartbeat. And it is something that I would explore, frankly, going forward.
Yeah, I mean, I think he was one of the best in the country. So, I mean, you definitely take that. Obviously, Harbaugh's paying him a lot and said he never wants to coach again without Ben Herbert as a strength coach. So he's going to do a hell of a lot to keep him if you go after him. But I think a lot of the injuries are luck. It's funny. Someone said to me this season, it just so happens that, the Pistons, the Tigers, the Lions, Michigan State, they all seem to have the same strength coach because all fan bases are complaining. And then you go to another market and guys are hurt there too. And then they're all blaming their strength coaches. It just happens. In some years, it's more than others. And this year, obviously, it hurt them a ton. Not saying the strength coach doesn't play any part in that, but, some of it is just luck, I would imagine.
A lot of super chats rolling in. So we'll just keep rolling through them. Gupta left one for $4.99 again. He left one in the post-game show Saturday, but no question. So there is a question here. Why not change the DC? I don't think Wink is the OG. Our schedule is very difficult next year. Need to raid the portal and consider other changes, big ones.
I don't think Wink Martindale is their biggest issue. I think the offense sucked. And you're talking 2 years in a row where in the biggest games, especially, your offense isn't doing crap. Especially last year, the job that he did, I thought was fantastic. And there were a couple games where he struggled, and then they learned. And then the last 2 games of the year were masterpieces, right? He had some really good games this year too. But again, even there, you're as good as your position coaches at times. He relies on them, in my opinion, a little bit too much when it comes to substitutions. I wrote on the board. Clay was frothing at the mouth when they had Caleb Anderson in there, I think in the third quarter or the fourth quarter, was it? So, second quarter, they went right at him. And it's like, you just lost all your momentum. And we were up there, we were incredulous about it. So I think he's got to be a little bit more authoritative there and make decisions. But to me, their biggest problems start up front. Not up front, but on the offense, and they got to figure that thing out first and give that defense a little bit more help. Quit putting them in bad positions, similar with the stinking special teams that were terrible.
You don't know who you're going to get to replace him, so I mean, who knows? But I would say I would lean towards having Wink Martindale over some unknown hire that Sherrone Moore is going to make. I agree. The offense and the special teams are much bigger issues for Michigan. So yeah, it's. I would hope that Wink Martindale stays. The problem is I don't think what he's going to do until probably the NFL hiring cycle goes through. And, that's in January, and maybe some other coordinators have moved around already. So it makes it tougher on you. But that's something you weighed, obviously, when you brought him in from the NFL. So, and you went through this a year ago. So, no, I don't think Wink was the problem this year. I think they got to get some better talent on that side of the ball. And then obviously the offense and special teams have to help the defense out. I went back and looked at it. The last time Michigan's won a game with poor defense was the Rutgers game in 2020 in overtime. And that was a year that was barely a season. How many times have they won with poor offense over the last 5 years? It's been, at least a dozen or more. So like there's so much riding on the defense every week. They've got to get the other phases up to speed.
GoBlue 9828 says this may not be a popular take. I actually think this might be more popular than you think. But some of our football programs from the Board of Regents historically had issues with football versus academics. No, I'm going to recuse myself from this because that's an entirely different conversation to have. But I think in general, speaking in generalities, I think a lot of poor leadership has led Michigan to where they are today.
Yeah, and not the Board of Regents. I think there are guys on the Board of Regents that care a lot about football and some that don't, right? I think it's better than it was. Let me put it that way. And there are people out there tackling some of the big issues and being very public about it. And I appreciate that more so than they have been in the past. And so to me, though, when you're looking at hires and firing and man, you gotta be careful about what you say, right? You really do, because I agree with Anthony that there are some people where you really question the decision making but when it comes to getting players in school and stuff like that and academics, I think that's been loosened a little bit. We're starting to see guys, come in after year two. Remember in the past when they said you can't get a guy in here, you can only get a freshman or a grad. They're starting to get some of the in-betweens there too. So I think things are being loosened up a little bit. So there are no excuses anymore, guys. You can pay for players now. You can put together a roster like that. So it's, to me, do you want to be serious about football or don't you? And I think we're going to find out here in the next year or so.
Yeah, my answer to this is, Jim Harbaugh is not here anymore. And I think everyone who was in charge at the time is to blame for that, in the way they handled some of the NCAA stuff and them, politicking and acting like they were going to appeal and fight and didn't. And that seems to just be par for the course. That's just one example. So, yeah, everyone's got a hand in everything good and bad, right? So that's kind of where we're at, I feel like.
All right. A couple more super chats to get to, guys. We're going to cut it off. So at this point, if you give us a super chat, you're firing your money into the sun. We love that, but we do have to get out of here shortly. This is from Eric Polite 7910. He says, have the convo now with Moore. If it looks ugly next year, cut ties. Doesn't get to 10 wins, cut ties. Are those the AD's expectations? I don't know what the expectations are, but I think if they don't make the playoff, then 3 years in a row in this system is unacceptable to me.
Agreed. And I think the donors care. The donors' expectations are higher, the one that are given all the money. And there are a lot of them that have a vested interest now, again, when you're buying players. So I think this next year is a huge year for Sherrone Moore.
That's a great point. It's not just what the AD thinks anymore, right? The donors have more say than ever. And in college sports, they've always had some say, right? But now it's more than ever. So it's a good point. But I think it's a big year. And yeah, who knows what the expectations are. It'd be interesting to talk to Ward Manuel about that, or, and even then, it's not totally just his call anymore, because if you lose the donor support, then it is worth cutting ties in some cases. You see that, like Michigan State, they had to cut ties with Jonathan Smith to get the donor support for the new coach.
Yep.
And they're not the only program doing it. So I'm not saying Michigan's going to do that, but yeah, it changes the equation there, because it's not just one guy's decision.
Elishan Bowman, who's fired a few in here. We'll take this one. Is Michigan going to go after Nick Marsh? Are we going to wait until Ty Simpson converts to wide receiver and then say he will be our alpha wide receiver? I don't think Nick Marsh will want to come to Michigan. Therefore, I don't expect Michigan to pursue him. I don't get the other part, I guess. But
no, I don't either. He's going to the SEC anyway, in Marsh. But Michigan is there are agents out there peddling receivers already. Michigan is not tampering. I want to make that clear. But we know of some receivers that are interested in playing with Bryce Underwood at Michigan, as long as they promise to throw the ball more than 5 times in the first half in a rivalry game.
And yeah, they're going to have to, show some different film, a different game maybe for that. But yeah, there's no such thing as tampering anymore. You're already seeing all these guys planning to enter the transfer portal, including Nick Marsh and all that. I'm not sure on Marsh. Obviously if grades were the issue out of high school, that doesn't really matter anymore. I don't know what his grades were at Michigan State, but I would imagine, yeah, he goes somewhere in the South and gets millions probably for the next year, and then maybe goes to the NFL after that. But yeah, I think Michigan will get some receivers for sure.
If he's interested, sure, but I think there are already guys interested that fit the billing too, and maybe a little bit of pressure off too with Andrew Marsh breaking out, but still need to get at least one high-end guy and probably another starting caliber guy as well. But all right, I'm going to call it there for us.
Kentucky's hiring Will Stein. That's official.
Will Stein. Okay, so Brian Hartline is still employed by Ohio State.
And Michigan goes out to Oregon next year, so a little bit of different offense.
That weakens them. So all right, well, there you go. Some news right before we get out of here. Be sure to like this video, subscribe to our channel, head on over to thewolverine.com. If you're not a subscriber of our website, go do that. Take advantage of that 50% off deal. Cyber Monday, it's going to run out here soon. If you've been here for an hour with us, you've already lost an hour of time where you're able to do that. So if you're watching live, or if you're catching us before midnight on December 1st, you can join us for 50% off your first year. But for Clayton Safey, for Chris Ballas, for our producer Megan behind the scenes, I'm Anthony Broom. Guys, thank you so much for watching, and we'll talk to you again next time.